Smollett ridiculed the super-rich in their mock Palladian palaces. Behind the facades of these la-di-da Georgian townhouses, he said, lay dirty secrets. Smollett thought that Georgian cities were the grand sources of luxury and corruption, and that their inhabitants were controlled by the demons of licentiousness. Smollett was just one of many writers who revealed that the engine driving much of Britain's economic success was far less palatable than tea or sugar. Professor James Walvin has made the slave trade his life's study. He believes that slavery seeped into every pore of Britain's emerging empire.
So how does this trade actually work? What other goods are involved?
We talk of it as a triangular trade. It's much more complex geographically than that, but nonetheless, that's the basic core of it. It's ships that leave here, Bristol, Liverpool, London, packed to the gunwales with produce from the hinterland, metal goods, but above all textiles for West Africa. And in West Africa, those goods are traded for Africans, and they're traded with other African traders. Africans providing the Africans for the slave ships. And then they're shipped across in huge numbers, the largest enforced movement of people ever, to the plantations of the Americas. The last leg is the leg that brings back the produce that the slaves had grown. It's tobacco, it's sugar, it's dyestuffs, rice, which we use for starch. 18th century clothing, ladies' fashionable clothing, starched and beautiful. Where's the starch come from? It comes from rice. And who grows the rice? Africans in South Carolina.
What impact do you think that the slave trade had on Britain's economy then? Was it central to it?
Historians have been arguing about this now for 50, 60 years. How central is the slave trade in the emergence of British economy? It's very hard to pin down to numbers. The knock-on effect of the slave trade is extraordinary. Who thinks, if you're looking at small textile villages in Yorkshire, that this is somehow or other driven by the slave trade? Who thinks of the trade in textiles from India, that this has got something to do with the slave trade? But Africans in Jamaica and Barbados are clothed in cool-fitting cotton goods from Gujarat. The ramifications of it are extraordinary, not merely in Britain, but globally. You're actually looking at a form of globalization in a world that doesn't use the word.
Do you think people were aware of this sort of dirty secret behind their economic success, or was it a case of out of sight, out of mind?
The British have traditionally not thought of slavery as something that's to do with them. This is something to do with Africa or the Atlantic or the Americas. Whereas in fact, it's British ships that take them over. It's British money that makes it possible. It's Britain that profits from its from slave work. So that it's very easy to think of yourself as being committed to freedom and liberty and not remember that actually all of your material well-being is bound up with something quite different, and that is the enslavement of millions of Africans.
Britain was helped in becoming the biggest slave trading nation in the world because it had a strong navy. Prince Frederick's supporters, singing Rule Britannia, claimed that Britons never shall be slaves. They were praising Britain's extraordinary liberties. But by policing British trade routes, the Royal Navy was helping to enslave millions of Africans.